What's up everyone, it's Dakota and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video, and today we're taking a look at the best deck in the standard format, actual, factual, and probably created one of the funniest metagame like graphics that the Pro Tour, or at least Wizards of the Coast has had to put out of a metagame, because we did have the Arena Championships over the weekend, and my god, that is freaking hilarious, and I'm hoping I'm smart enough and I end up putting the graphic up. But we're looking at the Izzet Cauldron deck today for the standard format. This is a deck that was kind of a popular deck, and when I say popular, I mean Paulo played it on camera, called it a brew, and players absolutely loved it, and we had seen quite a bit of it, and of course players had messed around with it and had innovated on it since its Pro Tour debut, and now we can easily call it one of, if not the very best deck in the standard format, and certainly a lot of high-level players have thought the same. So if you're looking to play a ton of mirrors, this is definitely the deck that you're going to want to play, and if you're not playing this deck, well, I guess you probably really don't want to win any of your tournaments, which is definitely a crazy thing to go for, but Magic players can do as they please. But before we get into the Izzet Cauldron deck tech today, if you're not subscribed to the channel and you want to see more videos like this and others on the channel, we focus mainly on the modern and standard format, as well as some other longer form videos for your viewing pleasure. If that is something that interests you, please consider subscribing and ringing that notification bell so you know when those videos get posted. It's a free, easy way to support me and my content, and if you want even more content, go ahead and check out the description down below. You can find a link to my Discord server, as well as my Twitch channel over at twitch.tv/Card823, the Casual Spikes Podcast YouTube channel, and if you want to play decks like this or other ones that you see on the channel, go ahead and check out the sponsor of the channel, Manatraders. Manatraders is a monthly subscription service where you can sign up so you can rent cards on Magic the Gathering Online, and again, play the decks that you see here on the channel with near instant treating from their services, as well as flexible memberships that you can have to kind of fit your style and needs here. What I absolutely love about Manatraders is the fact that I don't have to go out and try to buy a deck on Magic the Gathering Online, and when I don't like playing it, I don't have to mess around with trying to sell the cards to then buy something else. I just go to Manatraders, I select the deck that I want, something like Izzet Cauldron, and then when I'm done playing with it, or I just decide I don't like it, whatever the case may be, I trade it back to them, and then I can rent more cards and play something like maybe Mono White Tokens or the new Esper Self-Bounce deck that we're kind of seeing as making a resurgence in the current standard format. But if that is something that is of interest to you, go ahead and check them out and use my code in the description down below. You'll get 5% off your monthly subscription. I want to thank Manatraders for being a sponsor of the channel. Now let's go ahead and talk about this Izzet Cauldron deck, because from it felt like a long time ago, but I feel like maybe it's not that long ago. One gorilla versus 100 men. Well, right now it is Izzet Cauldron versus 100 like high-level Magic players, because this deck has absolutely broken the format here. So what exactly is the Izzet Cauldron deck? Well, funnily enough, it is based around this card that has Cauldron in the name. Agatha's Soul's Cauldron, a 2-mana legendary artifact that allows you to spend mana as though mana of any color to activate abilities of creatures you control. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters of them have activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Agatha's Soul's Cauldron, and it taps to exile a card from a graveyard. And when a creature card is exiled this way, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. So we're looking to use Agatha's Soul's Cauldron to do insanely busted things. We saw this pretty popularized in Modern, where Yawgmoth was playing it to get additional copies of Yawgmoth, and of course institute the plethora of combo kills that you get with Agatha's Soul's Cauldron and some of the other weird but effective creatures that we see in the Modern format. Here, we're trying to put probably the best creature in the standard format right now, Vivi Ornithir, underneath the Agatha's Soul's Cauldron. So it's a 3-mana 0/3 with this activated ability of paying 0 to add X mana in combination of blue and or red, where X is Vivi Ornithir's power. You activate only during your turn and only once each turn. So this ability is given to all of your creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, and essentially replaces, obviously with the name of, Vivi to the name of whatever the creature is, and you're essentially looking to get some very high-powered creatures so you can add a ton of mana and then use all of that mana to cast even more spells and just completely put your opponent and the game out of reach for them and absolutely snowball out of control. Vivi itself, when it's on the battlefield, is fantastic because you're going to cast your non-creature spells, you're going to be able to put counters on the Vivi, deal damage to your opponent as you cast these non-creature spells, and it just becomes a big threat that can then just run your opponent over if they don't have an answer for the Vivi. In the likely event that they do have an answer for a Vivi, then we get to eat it with an Agatha's Soul's Cauldron and put these +1/+1 counters on our creatures here. Cards like Mirage Marauding Mako are perfect because they're going to be creatures that end up getting bigger when we discard one or more cards. You're going to put that many +1/+1 counters on it, and then, of course, with it giving itself +1/+1 counters, you don't have to target it with the Agatha's Soul's Cauldron if you end up eating a creature. You just have a creature that is going to naturally get +1/+1 counters, and you're going to be able to move those counters onto different creatures to have more activated abilities of those cards. One of the other ways, and one of the cool synergies of this deck, now that we are in this post-rotation world here, is Prof's Eidetic Memory. Now, this was played in the deck before, but used in different ways. You know, we would see, the Voldaren Epicure being able to, like, throw your creatures, and Profs could make one creature super huge and then throw it, and you eat the Voldaren, whatever the heck, because I don't think it's Voldaren Epicure. I think that's the 1-mana one, but, you know, you eat it, and then you can throw it at your opponent, and then Profs is going to allow you to make your creatures even bigger and have them have those activated abilities and throw them, because it's going to put +1/+1 counters on your creatures, where it's the number of cards you've drawn, -1 if you've drawn more than one card this turn. So essentially, you ignore your draw step, and then every card you've drawn after that, you're going to be able to put that many counters on a creature. Also going into the, Vivi activated ability thing, also going into the Agatha's Soul's Cauldron thing, where, you're going to have counters on your creatures, and then when you have Vivi's ability, you're going to be able to add even more mana to this. We get to kind of fuel this sort of thing with cards like Fear of Missing Out that allow us to discard a card and draw a card when it enters. Steam Core Scholar getting us to draw 2 cards, and then we get to discard 2 unless we discard an instant or sorcery card or a creature with flying. This also allows us to help out with our Agatha's Soul's Cauldron stuff, because then we get to put one of our pieces in the graveyard to then eat it with the Cauldron. We also have this card, Winter Night Stories, which pulls a double duty in getting cards into the graveyard for our Agatha's Soul's Cauldron, but then also drawing a ton of cards with Prof's Eidetic Memory. 3 mana, we draw 3 cards, and then discard 2 unless we discard a creature card, and we can harmonize it for 4 in a blue, which means that we can basically tap a creature with a varying amount of power and get that much of a discount from the card, eventually making it just like 1 blue mana, meaning that it's pretty easy on a turn that when we have like 4 mana, or, we eat a Vivi, whatever, that we're able to activate our creature, cast a Winter Night Stories, draw a bunch of cards, and then harmonize it for even, less mana to draw some more cards, and then Prof is going to put 6 +1/+1 counters on a creature and be absolutely massive. And probably one of the best ways we have to generate a ton of mana with this deck, and what we're able to use it for, is having multiple +1/+1 counters on creatures and eating a Draconautics Engineer. So the fact that Agatha's Soul's Cauldron allows us to, make mana of any color, we're able to make a bunch of blue mana to cast like Winter Night Stories and Prof's Eidetic Memories and all this stuff, whatever. And then we're able to use the red mana, or any of the mana for that matter, to activate the various abilities that Draconautics Engineer gives our creatures. So, for example, we get to pay a red, and other creatures you control get +1, or you control gain haste until end turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, so you're going to be able to make it even bigger and give all your creatures haste. And you're also going to get 4 mana to create a 4/4 red dragon dinosaur creature token with flying into play. So this is a way that you can kind of snowball this out of control. You're always going to end up having another creature, so you're going to make a 4/4. You're able to put +1/+1 counters on it. You're going to be able to activate the exhaust ability to make another 4/4, and then you have another exhaust ability you can activate to give all your creatures haste. And, eventually once you have a ton of creatures with +1/+1 counters on them, if you have a creature with like at least 5 power, you can activate it with, activate Vivi's ability to add, 5 mana of any combination of colors. And then you're able to make a 4/4, give it haste, put another +1/+1 counter on that creature, and bash face on your opponent, and eventually win the game in that way with some evasive creatures. We also have cards like Terza Lightshatter that also go into this, discard things for Agatha's, but then also drawing cards for Prof's Eidetic Memory. And then we have a few key interactive pieces here with Into the Floodmaw, which can interact with our opponent's Agatha's or Prof's Eidetic Memory, or just get rid of any of the creatures that our opponent's looking to load up on to put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it. Torch the Tower and a Braid for some early removal. A Braid also getting double duty to kill the Agatha's Soul's Cauldron. And of course, Winter Night Stories, just to kind of get us a ton of velocity here. The mana base, 3 islands, 5 mountains, and then we have 4 River Pyre Verge, 2 Soulstone Sanctuaries, 4 Spirebluff Canal, 2 Starting Towns, which are now at, over $30, which is absolutely crazy, and 2 Thundering Falls round out our mana base here. And then in the sideboard, we have a Null, counter target artifact or enchantment spell. This is something that you can get, spending 1 mana to counter your opponent's like Agatha's or Prof's is absolutely huge. fire magic to help sweep the board at varying different toughnesses. You know, for 1 mana, we can sweep 1 toughness worth of creatures, or we can do 1 damage to each creature. For 3 mana, we can deal 2, and then, you know, if we end up getting to 6 mana, we can do it for 3. We have 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Torch of Tower, another Abrade, 2 Stroke, 2 Obliterating Bolt. We have 2 Broadside Barrage, which is going to allow us to essentially kill whatever creature our opponent has pretty early on in turn 3, and we're going to get to draw and discard a card, which also goes in with our Profs and Agatha plan. And 2 Ral Crackling Wit. This is a card that I've actually really enjoyed in a lot of just the Izzet decks, period. Just the fact that you're going to be able to cash in on creature spells, you're going to be able to put loyalty counters on Ral, and then you're going to be able to plus to make some otters, while the Storm Chaser's talent has been less popular here as of late, at least in most of the Izzet decks. I think Izzet Prowess still will probably play it just because it does make a 1 mana Prowess threat. But this is a card, you know, draw 3, discard 2. Again, fuels our, you know, Agatha plus Profs deck, or Profs building. And then -10, if we ever end up getting this to go off, we draw 3 cards, and you can emblem with instant sorcery spells. You cast Have Storm, and while, you know, we could get in trouble by like doing this with like a Winter Night Stories, there is a chance that we do this, and of course Profs, whatever, we're going to be able to make a big enough flyer to where we're going to have a ton of counters on our creature, and then we're just going to be able to swing over and hit our opponent with our massive creature. And in a nutshell, that is the Izzet Cauldron deck for the standard format. I had said in the beginning that this was probably the best deck in the standard format, and I think by just the fact that a lot of high-level players have decided that, you know, this deck is that great, whether you think or, you know, your personal opinion, whether you've been playing it and maybe you're not winning nearly as much with it, I think this is an incredibly hard deck to kind of pilot. I think there's some lines, like most decks, where you could just absolutely run your opponent over by just, you know, playing a Marauding Mako on turn 1, playing a Profs Eidetic Memory, and being able to put, you know, a counter on the Mako, and then going into some things like Tursa to discard some things, and then going like Agatha to eat a Vivi, and then playing another, you know, Fear of Missing Out to get more counters on the Mako, and then adding to make a bunch of mana, and then casting more of these creatures. Whatever the case may be, I think there's a lot of lines of play where you can absolutely snowball and crush your opponent, and I think that's really where the power of this deck comes into play. Also, the fact, too, with so many players playing in the mirror, Agatha's Soul's Cauldron has this weird little dance that it has to do, where if you go to eat something that is a creature, your opponent is just going to be able to eat it with Agatha's before you get a chance to. And if it's a creature of no consequence, then they don't really care. You can put your +1/+1 counter on a creature. You're not getting an activated ability at all, or an activated ability that's worth kind of activating. So then they're able to use their Cauldron to eat a Vivi or whatever else that you're looking to actually get rid of. And, you know, it's just kind of gets pretty crazy. It's kind of like the old Deathrite Shaman mirrors, where you want to add mana with it. Well, guess what? Your opponent's just going to eat the land, so you can't actually get your activation, and they're going to be able to untap and get their activation as well. So there's this weird little game that you end up playing with Agatha's Soul's Cauldron, where you're probably looking to get your opponents off the battlefield before activating yours and getting yours going. But then also, like, the Profs kind of build of that also allows us to, like, say, you know, whatever, I don't care about the graveyard, I'm going to play just my creatures out, I'm going to put a bunch of counters on them, and then I'm going to just bash your face in. Steam Core Scholar also doing a very good job with Flying and Vigilance, being able to kind of wear the counters very nicely, on top of also, you know, generating a potentially huge amount of mana there. But yeah, that's a Cauldron deck for the standard format. If you enjoyed the video, if you learned something, or if you want to throw in your own 2 cents, please leave a comment in the comments down below. Also, leave a suggestion for what deck you would like to see next. Also, consider subscribing to the channel and ring the notification bell so you're notified of future videos. We do cover the modern and standard formats pretty closely in terms of the competitive formats. We just posted a video the other day, actually, talking about 3 cards that, you know, are in, like, they're like legacy legal, and like these older cards that I would actually like to see in the modern format. So if that's something that interests you and you want to get in that discussion, go ahead and check out that video. And yeah, check out all the other things in the description down below. Check out Manatraders, great service. And yeah, that's going to be this video. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all in the next one.